The Raglan Hoban was the only one that didn't reach the reserve but was sold. I thought, and,
it didn't reach the price in the catalogue.
The catalogue, yeah. It was
sold for the reserve.
Yeah, sold for the reserve. Oh, it is, okay. Was there a physical problem? Was there a physical problem with that property?
There were lots of physical problems with that property.
Okay, that answers it.
It was, I mean, it was a property in very, very dated and tired condition, and it was as it was. We sold it as it was. You know, if it was completely renovated and finished, it probably would have been sold for, you know, 700,000 or 800,000 euro. There was one on the corner that sold only a few months back for 900,000 euro, fully finished. So, you know, we show it as it is, and we let people make their own judgment. And it's a very good point you brought up there, just in relation to the pricing system. How it works is that we put prices on the catalogue, and we give guarantees, and this works in the favour of the buyer. We give guarantees that the reserves set will not be any higher than the price in the catalogue, which means that there's actually a chance that a lot of them are lower. So, for instance, the Raglan Lane property said 600,000 euro in the catalogue. Now, the reserve price for that property, and I can say it now, was 550,000 euro. So, if you're interested in a property, and your interest is even a touch below the price in the catalogue, even though it's considered a low price in the catalogue, that there's still a chance that it can be bought below that price. So just to keep that in mind as well. In regards to the next auction, again, it's a mix. There's going to be properties in Dublin. There's going to be quite a lot of properties in Dublin. There's going to be properties in the city centre and the suburbs. There's going to be a range of apartments and houses. There are going to be a lot of properties in the other urban areas around the country as well. Properties in Cork, Limerick, Galway. We have some rural one-off housing as well. There are commercial units, mainly tenanted commercial units. There will be some vacant commercial units as well, that seeing as they're vacant, we're going to price them accordingly, and the reserves are going to be, you know, I think I'm not speaking out of school by saying the reserves are going to be considered low for the vacant commercial units, because you have to go and you have to get a tenant. So any investors that are interested in that, there's a chance to buy them certainly way below what our current asking prices on the internet. The tenanted commercial units will be, the reserves will be set reflecting very good yields. The yields will vary from 10 to 20% on some of the commercial tenanted units. And the numbers, we're not going to go as far as the 200 that we initially were kind of talking about. We've decided to set it more around 120. It could be between 110 and 130 lots. We're finalising the lots literally as we speak. The catalogue will be prepared over the next 10 days. So just to give you an idea of what's coming up, and we're launching the catalogue at the end of next week, and early the following week will be printed versions available, and we'll be distributing those, and we'll be commencing the viewings pretty much straight away. So hopefully I look forward to seeing any of you there that might have an interest.
Two questions, Robert.
Yeah.
One is, could you clarify the position on the commercial VAT, because I had experience before and it was a minefield, right? That's number one. And question number two is, where is the action going to be this time? In the Shelbourne, I was there.
Question number two is answered very quickly. It's going to be the Shelbourne again. Right. No, but I think in fairness now, the first auction was, you know, there was a lot of novelty factor there. You know, there was huge interest from everybody beyond them necessarily there to buy. I think every estate agent in the country was there on the day just to watch what was going on. Half the solicitors in Dublin City were there, and half the accountants were there as well to watch what was going on. So, you know, that sort of, we expect that sort of novelty factor will, you know, will have more than enough, and people will be there hopefully just to buy. But in respect of your answer to your question about the VAT,
yeah,
it is a question that comes up a lot. It's very, it's an intricate web of a minefield of VAT, particularly with receivership properties where they don't actually have the VAT history of the property. So what happens there is ultimately the property is put up caveat emptor in relation to VAT. I mean, there were a number of commercial units that right up until the day of the auction we actually couldn't clarify whether VAT was payable or not. So ultimately, as is the norm with commercial properties, the purchaser pays the VAT. In residential, the purchaser doesn't pay VAT. Commercial properties, they pay it. So they came to the stage whereby the special condition and the VAT condition declared that, sort of in a nice summed up fashion, if that is payable, it is payable. So that was up to, you know, ultimately, if that was payable, the purchaser was liable for it. If it wasn't payable, then the purchaser didn't have to pay it. And so the reality is then, again, it comes back to the auction scenario. If that's disclosed, you're told that, and you bid accordingly by your own calculations.
Take good advice in advance and do
Exactly.
as much research.
What rate of that? What's the rate?
Well, it varies, but sometimes it's 13.5%, sometimes it's 21%. But in general, it was. I think the properties that we'll be looking at there were the lower rate of VAT. But again, it's such a minefield. There's so many different areas that VAT applies.
Is it announced who they're selling, whether the VAT is payable?
If we know where the VAT is payable, yes, it's announced. For instance, all the residential properties were announced as no VAT is payable.
And can you put that in the catalogue if it applies or doesn't apply? Robert?
It probably won't go in the catalogue because it's very much into the contract for sale. But the contract for sale is available for viewing along with the catalogue, online. So we advise everyone to make sure that they satisfy themselves as to the VAT situation for commercial property, because it genuinely is never necessarily always a straight answer to it.
Would you have any? We have a specialist tax advisor on the panel, so.
Yeah, no, I was just going to interject there. Generally the rate is 13.5.
Yeah.
But whether VAT is payable or not depends on whether the property was developed since 1972, and 4 or 5 other factors, and the VAT rules on property changed in 2008 as well. So you're correct to say it's a technical area, and it's one that you'd be well advised to seek advice on beforehand, because if you're thinking of it's something you don't want to get stung on. That sort of, and even if depending on the VAT situation and what the commercial practicalities are of the purchase, sometimes there's some planning opportunities in that as well. So.
Yeah. So, I don't know, any more questions on that? Yeah.
Sorry, just a quick question in regards to the reserve. In the absence of tenants or comparable properties in a particular area, how would you be assured ultimately that reserve is correct in the round? What other
well, I suppose
difference?
There's no such thing as I suppose a correct or an incorrect reserve, because a reserve ultimately is not a valuation. Again, it's announcing to the people what the vendor's bottom line is. Now, we advise the vendor on their bottom line. That's our job. We look at all sorts of factors. We do look at comparable properties in the area. We do look at recent sales where we have them and where we can get them. And we estimate a reserve price that is going to be very good value for a purchaser for that property in the area. Okay, if we have a reserve price that is not good value, the property is just not going to sell. It's as simple as that. So these properties are there to sell. They're on behalf of receivers. The receiver and the lender has made a decision that that property is going from the hold box to the sold box. So therefore, they don't want that property coming back to them. So they're prepared to sell at a reserve price that is considered very affordable for that property in the area, on the basis that they have made a corporate decision to sell. But it's not just selling at a set price. It's selling for whatever the market decides the price is. That, again, is crucial from a vendor's perspective and from a receiver's perspective. You see, they have to be shown to show a duty of care, fiduciary care, to achieve the open market price for a property, because they can't be accused of underselling a property. So nobody can ever argue with an open auction whereby you have plenty of advertising and you have 1,000 people in a room. That is the open market value. Be the value down there or be the value up there, yeah.
The one property that didn't sell, was there a particular issue with that, or was it a price issue?
We priced it too high.
It's too high.
Yeah, it was the one we got wrong. The one that got away was a property down in Carlow, and we freely admitted to our clients that we priced it too high. So that particular property in question will very likely re-enter the next auction with a lower reserve.
And sorry, just in relation to that Carlow property, there was 2 people actually bidding on it in the room. You just didn't make the reserve, isn't that correct?
Yeah.
But there was actually 2 interested parties bidding on it.
So if we had,
and you came fairly close.
It did. So if we had a lower reserve, it would have sold.
Yeah.
So that, again, from a buyer's perspective, shows our interest in keeping the reserve correct, because we want them all sold. Otherwise, it's a waste of a journey for us and for everyone else, and a lot of expense.
That's right. Yeah. Well, thank you very much.